Greetings to all. Welcome to Future of this Academy. Today we are going to see the daily current affairs of June 11. Today we are going to discuss the topics of Council of Ministers, Aditya L1 mission, census in India, and finally the PM Kishan. So these are the topics we are going to have a detailed analyze. Today our first topic is about Council of Ministers. Under this we have to know about their background and their parliamentary status and who are the union executives and if is the COM's advice is binding and their oath and salary, their responsibilities and their categories. At first, portfolio system was started by Lord Canning in Indian Councils Act in the year 1861. So in the United Kingdom, Council of Ministers is the real executive which is left on the convention. In India, the system of Council of Ministers is codified and mentioned in the Indian Constitution. The Constitution of India provides for a parliamentary system of government which is modelled on British pattern. The Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister is the real de facto executive authority is a politico-administrative system. The principles of the parliamentary system of government are not provided in detail in the Constitution. Articles 74 and 75 in Part 5 with them in a broad, sketchy and general manner says about this. So here Article 74 deals with the status and nature of the Council of Ministers and Article 75 deals with the appointment, tenure, responsibility, qualification, oath and salaries and elements of the ministers. Every minister is responsible for the acts of the officers of this department. He has to answer questions regarding the affair of his department in the parliament. Council of Ministers rarely meets so the driving wheel of the government in the cabinet. Now the constitutional provisions are the articles spanning from 74 to 78 in part 5 is broadly deals with the Central Council of Ministers. The 74 is the Council of Ministers to aid and advise President. Article 75 says about other provisions as to ministers. Article 77 says about conduct of business of government of India. Article 78 deals with duties of the Prime Minister as respects the furnishing of information to the President and etc. Article 88 states rights of ministers with respect to the houses. Now, who are the Union Executive? It consists of President, Vice President, Prime Minister, Union Council of Ministers, and finally Attorney General of India. So here, a minister who is not a member of a parliament, either Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha, for any period of 6 consecutive months shall cease to be a minister. The minister shall hold office during the pleasure of the president. Now, we have to know about 91st Constitutional Amendment Act 2003. The total number of ministers, inclusive of the Prime Minister in the Council of Ministers, shall not exceed 15% of their total strength of Lok Sabha. A member of either house by the Parliament belonging to any political party who is disqualified on the ground of defection shall also be disqualified to the appointed as a minister. Now, consideration in consulting the Council of Ministers. What are the ministers from different regions to enhance regional representation of Council of Ministers? Representation of communities, caste, women and coalitions, capability of ministers to deal with various tasks, also the age factor, that is young and dynamic personality along with adequate experience. He should be a good administrator and decision maker, visionary and optimistic with futuristic attitude and non-corrupt and high moral standards. Now we have to know that is the Council of Ministers advice is really binding or not binding. The 42nd 1976 and 44th 1978 Constitutional Amendment Acts have made the advice binding on the President. In 1971, the Supreme Court held that even after the dissolution of the Lok Sabha, the Council of Ministers does not cease to hold office. 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976, the President shall, in the exercise of his functions, act in accordance with the advice rendered by the Council of Ministers. And in 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978 added a proviso to the effect that the President may require the Council of Ministers to reconsider such advice, and the President shall act in accordance with the advice tendered after such reconsideration. However, the nature of advice tendered by ministers to the President cannot be inquired by any court. The provision emphasizes the intimate and the confidential relationship between the President and the ministers. Now, how the nature of advice by the ministers is seen. It should be noted that 74 is mandatory, and in any case, the President cannot exercise the executive power without the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. Any exercise of executive power without the aid and advice will be unconstitutional as being violate of Article 74. In 1974, the court held that whether the Constitution requires the satisfaction of the President, the satisfaction is not personal satisfaction of the President, but it is the satisfaction of Council of Ministers with those aid and whose advice the President exercises his powers and functions. And also with this we have to know about the oath and salary of the Council of Ministers. Oath. First, every minister has to undertake the oath of office and secrecy before entering into his office. The salary is, the Constitution declares that the salaries and allowances of ministers shall be determined by the Parliament of law. So accordingly, the Parliament by law passed in 1985 had laid down that each minister shall receive the same salary and allowances which are being paid to be a member of the Parliament. Now, what are the controversies associated with oath and affirmation? The oath by Devi Lal as Deputy Prime Minister in 1990 was challenged as being unconstitutional, as the Constitution provides only for the Prime Minister and other ministers. The Supreme Court upheld the oath as valid and stated that describing a person as Deputy PM is descriptive only, and such description does not confer on any powers of PM. Now, what are the responsibilities of the Council of Ministers? They have collective responsibility, next individual responsibility, also no legal responsibility. So such responsibilities have been seen with the Council of Ministers. With this, we have to know about the categories of ministers. The categories are: first, cabinet ministers; next, minister of state; next, the minister of state is in independent charge. Third is minister of state. Next, fourth, deputy ministers. So these are some of the categories. With this, we have to know about what are the advantages of cabinet. It is easier to build consensus, more effective discussion and efficient time utilization, less burden on public exchequer, economic efficiency, and more priority to secrecy, more rational division of work, large size Council of Ministers ties up too many tongues, and less viewpoint is available. Now, what are the role of the cabinet? The cabinet is the highest decision authority in Indian political administrative system. Cabinet envisages a chief policy formulating body of the central government. It is the supreme executive authority. He is the chief coordinator of the central administrator. Also, cabinet is the chief crisis manager and thus deals with all exigencies. It deals with all major legislative and financial matters. Also, this cabinet exercises control over higher appointments like constitutional authorities and senior secretariat administrators. Also, this cabinet deals with all foreign policies and foreign affairs. Now, with this, we have to know about kitchen cabinet. Every prime minister in India has his inner cabinet, a circle within a circle. It is during the era of Indira Gandhi, the inner cabinet, which came to be called as kitchen cabinet, was particularly powerful. Kitchen cabinet consists of an informal body of the prime minister and 2 to 4 influential colleagues in whom he has faith and with whom he can discuss every problem. Not only cabinet ministers but also outsiders like friends and family members of the prime minister can be included. Members of the kitchen cabinet advise the prime minister on important political and administrative issues and assist him in making crucial decisions. So that's all from this topic. Our next topic is about Aditya L1 mission. Under this, we have to know about what is Aditya and their point long range objectives and their significance, also their challenges. Aditya L1 will be the first spaced Indian mission to study the sun. So it was conceptualized in January 2008 by the Advisory Committee for Space Research. The spacecraft shall be placed in a halo orbit around the Lagrange point 1 L1 of the Sun-Earth system, which is about 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth. A satellite placed in the halo orbit around the L1 point has the major advantage of continuously viewing the sun without any occultation or eclipses. This will provide a greater advantage in observing solar activities and their effect on space weather in a real time. The Aditya L1 mission will take around 109 Earth days after launch to reach the halo orbit around the L1 point. The spacecraft carries 7 payloads to observe the photosphere, chromosphere and outermost layers of the sun using electromagnetic and particle and magnetic field detectors. The instruments of Aditya L1 are tuned to observe the solar atmosphere, mainly the chromosphere and corona. Instew instruments will observe the local environment at L1. Using the special vantage point L1, 4 payloads directly view the sun and the remaining 3 payloads carry out in studies of particles and feeds at the Lagrange point L1, thus providing important scientific studies of propagation effect of solar dynamics is an interplanetary medium. There is a total of 7 payloads on board, with 4 of them carrying out remote sensing of the sun and 3 them carrying in-situ observation. So some of that are visible line emission chronography, that is VLEC. Next, solar ultraviolet imaging telescope, that is SHOOT. Solar ultraviolet imaging telescope. Next, SOLEX, solar low energy X-ray spectrometer. Next, ASPEX, Aditya solar wind particle experiment. Next, HEL1OS, high energy L1 orbiting X-ray spectrometer. Next, PAPA, plasma analyzer package for Aditya. Next, advanced tri-axial high resolution digital magnetometers. So the shoots of Aditya L1 payloads are expected to provide the most crucial information to understand coronal heating, coronal mass ejection, pre-flare and flare activities and their characteristics, dynamics of space weather, propagation of particles and fields, etc. Now we have to know about the point Lagrange. So what is this point Lagrange? Lagrange points are positions in space where objects sent there tend to stay put. These are positioned in space whether the gravitational forces of a two-body system like Sun and the Earth produce enhanced regions of attraction and repulsion. These can be used by spacecraft to reduce fuel consumption needed to remain in the position. Now, what are the objectives of this Aditya L1 mission? The major objectives of Aditya's L1 mission are to study solar upper atmospheric dynamics, study of chromospheric or coronal heating, physics of partially ionized plasma, initially of the coronal mass ejections and flares, also to observe the in situ particle and plasma environment, providing data for the study of particle dynamics from the sun, physics of solar corona and its heating mechanism, identifying the sequence of processes that occur at the multiple layers such as chromosphere, base and extended corona, which eventually leads to solar eruptive events. Also the magnetic field topology and magnetic field measurements in the solar corona, drivers for space weather such as origin, composition and dynamics of a solar wind. Now what are the significance of this Aditya L1 mission? Multiple studies of solar activity and its impact on space weather will be feasible thanks to the mission, which will have 7 instruments on board to study the chromosphere, the sun's outermost layers and the photosphere. The impacts of fluctuation in the solar weather system must be studied carefully. Whether changes have the potential to alter satellite orbits, reduce their lifespan, harm onboard equipment and result in a power. Now what are the challenges seen with this? The Sun and the Earth are very far apart, hence the distance coverage by the mission is a sensitive point. This satellite features moving parts which increases the likelihood of a collision with another satellite in orbit. Although Aditya L1 will be located very far from the Sun, the mission may suffer due to the extremely intense temperature and radiation in a sunny weather. So that's all from this topic. Our next topic is census in India. Now, what is census in India? Population census provides basic statistics on state of human resources, demography, culture and economic structure at local, regional and national level. In the beginning the year 1872, when the first census was conducted non-synchronously, the census enumeration exercise in India is carried out in every 10 years. The first synchronous census was taken under British rule in 1881 by W.C. Plowden, Census Commissioner in India. The responsibility of conducting the decadal census rests with the office of the Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, what is the legal or constitutional basics of census in India? Population census is listed in Union List of 7th schedule in Indian Constitution. Census is conducted under the provisions of the Census Act 1948. Now, what is the process of this census enumeration? The census operations in India have been carried out in 2 phases. The first phase is house listing and housing census and population and enumeration. Now, what are the futures of this? By ensuring decadal census of India will be the 16th in series and 8th after the independence. In the history of Indian census, for the first time, the census data will be collected digitally on mobile app in ensuing census. Also, the self-enumeration facility will be provided for the first time in the forthcoming census. With this, we have to know about what is the National Population Register. It is the register of usual residents of the country. It is mandatory for every usual resident of India to register in NPR. According to the Citizenship, Registration of Citizens and Issue of National Identity Card Rules 2003, a usual resident is a person who has resided in a local area for past 6 months or more. A person who intends to reside in that area for next 6 months or more. It includes both Indian citizens as well as foreign citizens. The objective of the NPR is to create a comprehensive identity database of every usual resident in the country. The first national population register was prepared in the year 2010, and updating this data was done during 2015 by conducting door-to-door survey. The next national population register shall be held along with the census 2021. Due to the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, the work of NPR updation and other related field activities got postponed. NPR is conducted by the Office of the Registrar General of India under the Home Ministry. So that's all from this topic. Our next topic is about PM Kishan. PM Kishan is a central sector scheme. So with 100% funding from the government of India, its objective is the scheme aims to supplement the financial needs of the farmers in producing various inputs to ensure proper crop health and appropriate yields commensurate with the anticipated farm income. It has become operational from 1/12/2018. Under the scheme, income support of rupees 6,000 per year in the 3 equal installments will be provided to all landholding farmer families. The definition of family for the scheme is husband, wife and minor children. The state government and the union territories administration will identify the farmer families that are eligible for the support as per the scheme guidelines. The fund will be directly transferred to the bank accounts of the beneficiaries. Now, what are the exclusion categories of this? The following categories of beneficiaries shall not be eligible for benefits under the scheme: all institutional landholders, farmer families that belong to one or more of the following categories, such as farmers and present ministers, state ministers and former present members of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, state legislative assemblies, state legislative council, former and present mayors of municipal corporation, former the present chairpersons of districts panchayat. Also, former and present holders of constitutional post, all persons who paid income tax in the last assessment year, professionals like doctors, engineers, lawyers, chartered accountants, and architects, such as these persons cannot be included in this category. So that's all from our today's topics. To read this document, you can visit our website. Our website link have been provided in the description. To get more daily current affairs videos, follow our YouTube channel, also our Telegram channel. Thank you.